It's my pleasure to welcome you all here tonight on behalf of the Bristol Festival of Ideas, on behalf of UWE Philosophy, and on behalf of UWE Social Science in the City. It's my great pleasure, first of all, to introduce His Excellency, the Ambassador of the Czech Republic to the United Kingdom, Michael Zantowski.
Struggle with the technology a little. Well, ladies and gentlemen, good evening, and thank you for inviting me to speak at this event. It is really a great honor and pleasure. I'm not sure how much I will be able to contribute to your subject. This is a conference, a philosophical conference on the meaning of Europe, and I'm not a philosopher, I'm a diplomat. And in some respects, the two disciplines are directly opposed. Whereas philosophers search for the true meaning of the phenomena, diplomats are often busy trying to obscure it. However, they shouldn't be able to obscure the fact that some of the questions posed by philosophy in its quest for meaning bear direct relevance on the issues of our contemporary world, including political issues and issues regarding Europe in particular. To sum up, for all his enthusiasm for the European project, Havel objected to its rationalistically utilitarian, materialist underpinnings. The idea so pronounced in the evolution of the European Union that by designing and implementing the institutions and decision-making procedures of a European polis, you can actually create such polis, would count as the original sin in his thinking. The impatience with which some of the people managing the project insists on an ever closer union, that's the buzzword, whose next progressive stage must be reached by a time certain or else the union is in the danger of collapsing, would strike him as hubris. I believe it is obvious from the few excerpts I quoted how much Havel owes to Patočka and Husserl in reiterating the importance of understanding and soul as a cornerstone of any real European community, and how distant is the current European reality from this ideal. So the result is a paradox. In keeping with Patočka's teaching, Havel, a great European and a staunch advocate of European integration, was at the same time a fierce critic of how it went about the integration. In my view, the solution of the current European crisis is contained in this very paradox. Thank you very much.
Anya, Teresa, Teresa, please, go ahead.
First of all, thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador, for this very interesting speech and also for reconnecting the question of the meaning of Europe to its philosophical re-elaborations, and especially the one of Jan Patočka. Since you were talking about the Europe of the heart, would this mean that for you we have to instead go for a deeper political integration that does not only include economic regulations, but also the building of a true political community? So this is my first question. And my second question instead would be, you have, in a very right way, in my opinion, talked about the need for including citizens in the debate on the European Union. But how can this be done when the European elites, both the elites of the European Union and the national ones, have just demonstrated that they did not care about what the citizens were saying?
So now, what should we do? I mean, you pose these two alternatives, and my answer would be neither. And that's why I quoted the line of Havel about the importance of being able to wait and to have some room for reflection, for debate, for comprehension.
Maybe it's a good thing the European Union isn't strong, doesn't have a strong identity. Perhaps, actually, sometimes the less constriction, the more freedom there are for the differences across Europe to engage. Perhaps think about it this way, the more space the less rules there are, the more space there are for people to participate.
I would disagree with you in that you cannot avoid discussing identity. You have to find some kind of a space for identity, because without identity there's no community.
Thank you to all three of you for those very stimulating interventions. And now I really would like to turn it over to the audience, actually, for any questions you have, but also just comments if you have. And your comments don't have to be limited to what has been discussed or to the issues that have been raised. So Ashit.
We touched earlier on the attitude of the elites towards basically what citizens of Europe want or don't want. And you mentioned the shock that was to many people. Maybe it wasn't so much of a shock to everyone. I've been reading recently a chap called Peter Mayer, the late political scientist, a book called Ruling the Void. And he's been saying for some time now that the dirigist top-down Europe we have reflects the deliberate intentions of its founders. And that the electoral preferences of the EU voters have no formal constraint on the policymakers. And basically that's how it was meant to be. Europe is an elite, controlled sphere on which the sort of preferences of the voters and their representatives just have no impact whatsoever. If that is the case, all this hand-wringing about the democratic deficit and reform is meaningless because they've got it and they're going to keep it.
I would actually say that if that is, and I would tend to agree with you, that's what Europe has become, I would say it can be reclaimed. I mean, I'm inspired by what we've seen across Europe. I was in London last year when there was this People's Assembly, and I was really impressed with people coming up and speaking. It was happening across Europe. I would say that's not a reason to quit. That's a reason to fight back and to get more involved. So, I mean, I agree with you, but then let's do something about it.
My question concerns the notion of civil society. When I was at the Potocka Centenary Conference in Prague, there was a lot of discussion on that. And I was wondering if you have any insights about the relationship between civil society and the deficits or pluses in it, and the notion of Europe of the heart.
Civil society, I'm for it, but that's not saying much. Now, seriously, we've had, after 1989, when things changed, there was very little of civil society. There had been some institutions and networks of civil society before the Second World War. It was mostly destroyed by the Nazis and the communists afterwards. What little there was of it was in the opposition to the communist regime in the 70s and 80s. That was the kernel of the civil society. And after 1989, the idea that civil society is an essential element of any functioning democratic society that mediates, so to speak, between the individual, the citizen, and the government in many respects, and that in and of itself does some things that the government cannot or will not do is not universally accepted.
What part would you think that the breakdown of the social contract over the last 20 to 30 years, the idea of more that you don't do things for your community, that you do for money, whether by whatever process, deregulation of markets in the UK and in Italy over the last 20 years, cheap credit being made available in Italy, Ireland, Greece, the introduction of the euro, this idea that if you pump more cash in, that people no longer need to participate with each other and no longer that you could just go out and buy it, essentially. And now, I think the best story I heard was G8 Summit about 2 years ago, just when everyone was talking about the end of the euro, just all those nights and so forth. There was a G8 Summit, and I think the finance minister for China came out, and they said to him, how do you feel about like this worldwide depression that we're going through? And I said, well, we're not going through a worldwide depression. What we call it is North Atlantic recession, because that's the only place it's happening.
I would call it a crisis of neoliberalism, and as such, for me, it's a deep political crisis, affecting especially the European identity, maybe more than the one of the United States. And that's why I would say that I really found interesting the idea of waiting, also because I like it also as a philosophical idea, I think, but I'm not sure that we have the time to wait now.
Thank you. It's been observed that a popular movement inevitably crops up against limitations of its own understanding. And we talk about a post-Enlightenment response. And it's like someone's turned the light out. It's supposed to be an enlightenment. Was it a pseudo-enlightenment? Diana Call, co-chair of the BBC Trust, has written a book called Economics as if the Future Mattered. And that's written by Enlightenment Economics. And it provides a basis, along with the work of Sedlacek, which provides a Slavic sensibility to the European limitation, the economics of good and evil, along with economics as if people mattered, and putting this trinity of value and purpose and meaning together, we can reach a sustainable solution that can address the neoliberal crisis that is not just in politics, but it's primarily an economic one.
Thank you. Having worked with the European Commissioner as coming from a region, it's almost destroyed my love of Europe. Dealing with the European bureaucracy is something that can be soul-destroying. And then you go to the pub with the people you've been at the same meeting with, who come from Saxony, who come from Tuscany, who come from Ústí nad Labem in the Czech Republic. And then you remember, you sit around the pub and you have a drink and you get on together. And that's what, to me, being European is about. That you get on together in a shared environment and you have your discussions and nobody agrees on everything you say, but it's about sitting down and being in a place where you can enjoy each other's company in a sensible way.
Exactly. That's and for me, this is one of the dimensions of waiting, or it's active waiting. I am always vastly encouraged when I see, the numbers of Polish or Slovak or Czech students at every university in this country, in Europe, when I see British teachers in Prague and students as well. And it's, they take some things that we still are getting used to, they take them for granted. They will not remember a time when things were different. So, and they don't need any bureaucrats or regulations to, sit together and realize that they have, again, coming back to identity, like it or not, that they have so much in common.
All right. Speaking of all the things that we have in common, I know in the Czech Republic you have some really wonderful beers. We also have wonderful beer here in Bristol, actually. So I'd like to just present you with a small gift of a selection.
I don't have to drink it now.
You don't have to drink it all. I also have for our two, Anya, Belgium is also.
I know, I sort of like, really?
Teresa, Italy, I'm sorry. Maybe we'll taste a good one. So let's give a warm
There's a maple leaf on it.
And really a warm thank you to all of you for your contributions. Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming to events like this.